Pokémon is a titanic franchise which has captured the hearts of gamers since the original releases of Red and Blue, or Red and Green, if you're a weeb. Throughout the series, the trainer battles are at the forefront of the gameplay, putting the team you've spent hours of your life building up to the test.
So today, we want to take a look at all the great trainer battles spanning generations 1 through 7 and find out which ones are the very best that no one ever was.
Some disclaimers to get us started with this list. This is our list, which means it's subjective, and if you don't like it, we don't care.
Honorable mentions are not necessarily worse than anything on the list, but they didn't make it for certain reasons, so we'll try to make that a little clear.
Seriously guys, do not add us on Twitter. Honorable mentions, round 1. Mirror B, Ludicolo, dancing, arriba! Case closed.
Whitney. I swear to God, if you just roll out one more goddamn time, you piece of shit cow.
Number 10.
Emma. We really wanted to make sure Gen 6 was represented at some point in our top 10, and we felt that Emma was perhaps the greatest example of an impactful battle in X and Y. The post-game for Gen 6 has you teaming up with series mainstay Looker on a hunt to weed out the remaining Team Flare influence in Lumia City. This investigation leads you to discovering Emma, a girl who has completely lost her memories and has only a partner Pokemon to her name. Looker and the player help her, and Looker becomes a father figure to her, and as the investigation continues, the three of you form a little detective family.
But all cannot remain well, as when Emma unknowingly begins to work for a Team Flare member, she's manipulated by him into committing numerous crimes under the influence of a mind-controlling suit, which gives her the identity Essentia. The player ultimately tracks Essentia down and defeats her, saving Emma in the process and freeing her from mind control. What's really great about this battle is how unique its circumstances are in the story. There really isn't another battle in the franchise that feels as tragic and personal as fighting with the mind-controlled Emma, whose endearing relationship with Looker is at the core of X and Y's postgame. It may not be the most epic or interesting battle, but it definitely stands out as one of the most unique and emotional in the franchise.
Number 9!
Norman. Normally, Pokemon doesn't focus on the protagonist's family ties. The most it presents you with in the first two generations is your mom bidding you farewell and saving your money if you wanted that, which I never did. However, in Gen 3, Norman is introduced. To date, he's the only father to make an appearance in any of the core games. It adds an interesting dynamic that is helped by the fact that he doesn't let you challenge him until you're halfway through your gym battles.
Bringing in a father figure is a compelling move on its own, but to set up a narrative of leaving home to come back and beat said father figure is downright exciting. When you finally receive your 4th gym badge and head on down to face him, his dialogue is one of the most inspiring lines in the game. Having to fend off your own flesh and blood must give way to such contradictory emotions, but that's what makes the battle as memorable as it is.
Number 8.
Colress. After Black and White gave us one of the most interesting narratives ever seen in a Pokemon game, the sequel games had some huge shoes to fill in terms of story. Perhaps one of the biggest strengths of Black and White and 2 is that it simultaneously pays respects to the strong story of its predecessors, while also not feeling restrained to telling the same story over again. The biggest narrative difference can be found in Colress, who, after meeting him a few times throughout the main game as an enigmatic scientist with a deep interest in Pokemon, you find out he has been acting as a new face of Team Plasma after N left a year before.
Even though he was ultimately another figurehead for Ghetsis like N before him, finding out that Colress is the acting leader of Team Plasma in Black and White 2 is a fairly interesting surprise. Throughout the game, there's no reason to think that he's necessarily an evil person, as he aids the player in multiple ways throughout the journey. Sure, he's fairly straightforward about being obsessed with the strength of Pokemon, and this ends up being the core of his arc. His quote before the battle with him on Plasma Frigate is one of the most telling. If it means the strength must be brought out by the interactions between Pokemon and trainers, then so be it. If it means you have to use a merciless approach like Team Plasma's and force out all of the Pokemon's power, then so be it. And yes, if the entire world is destroyed as a result, then so be it.
Colress has an interesting arc for a major antagonist, and his battle music stands up there with some of the series' best. After this encounter, Colress is convinced that the bond between Pokemon and trainers is more important than the merciless tactics of Team Plasma, so he dissolves the organization and dedicates his life to research. Number 7!
Cynthia. Many people feel that Cynthia is the best Pokemon League champion, and there's a lot of arguments that can support that opinion. She's a ridiculously engaging champion in Platinum especially, and her studying of ancient myths helps give the Sinnoh lore a bit more of forefront compared to the previous generations. Cynthia shows up and you know who she is and what she likes right out the gate.
Yet, the best part of Cynthia as a champion may be the battle against her itself. Her team is extremely diverse and well crafted, with her ace of a Garchomp packing a serious punch. Because how difficult of a challenge she can be, there is justifiable cause to name her the hardest champion to win against.
All in all, Cynthia has a great role as Sinnoh's champion, inside and outside of the league. Number 6.
Wally. Wally may be one of the most interesting characters on this list, because he doesn't really fit into any one archetype. At first, he's just a sickly kid who serves as story justification for Gen 3's catching tutorial. Throughout the first half of the game, you don't really see that much of Wally on his journey, as every time you meet him, he's too weak to push past the obstacles of being a Pokemon trainer like you, and he's frequently pushed by his family to hold off on his ambitions so he can recuperate in Verdanturf Town.
This all changes when you reach the end of Victory Road. Wally was able to recover, and with the desire to improve and face you at full strength, and with the help of his Pokemon he could barely catch at the game's outset, Wally becomes a strong trainer who's able to rival you at full strength. While the player was off dealing with defending the world from impending doom, Wally was able to challenge and defeat all 8 gym leaders. Although May and Brendan usually serve as each other's rival, that sort of fizzles out in the narrative relatively early, with the other character deeming it more appropriate to focus on their Pokédex instead. And at the end of Victory Road, the player experiences a paradigm shift when Wally goes from being a helpless kid to their true rival, waiting to challenge you one last time before you take on the Elite Four. Honorable mentions, round 2.
Kukui. Should have been the Mass Royale in my opinion.
Brendan and May in the post-game of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I ship it.
Number 5.
Rainbow Rocket leader Giovanni. Pokemon isn't really known for very complex story arcs, but one of them certainly belongs to Giovanni. In the first iteration of the games, he's with you every step along your journey as the big bad that keeps causing trouble. But no one could have predicted him to be the mysterious absent gym leader of Viridian City. It's a satisfying conclusion to beat him and send Team Rocket into hiding, all while securing the last badge you need to take on the Indigo League.
Yet, there's even more to that story. What if Giovanni had gotten his way and won? In fact, what if every antagonist had won in their timelines? Those interesting questions are answered in Ultra Sun and Moon's post-game story, and it leads to some intense boss fights. It's insanely cool to fight team leaders that have been shaped by their victories instead of their defeats.
Giovanni is no exception. He orchestrates the entire multiverse takeover of the Aether Foundation, and hearing the Team Rocket theme remixed is nothing short of awesome. Battling the first big bad with his brand new theme music that remixes the classic Team Rocket anthem and mega evolving Mewtwo by his side is an extraordinary climax. Number 4.
Guzma. Team Skull is unlike other antagonistic teams in the sense that they're less organized crime mafia and more street hoodlums. You would think that these type of disorganized comical batch of baddies would have a similar type of leader. And you'd only be sort of right. It's your boy, Guzma! Here's the thing about Team Skull. They're awful at being bad guys. The most they ever managed to do is cause a ruckus here and there and steal one Pokemon. A preschool kid's youngest. Pokemon fans love Team Skull precisely because they're useless losers. It makes them adorable, and all I want to do is get them in a noogie and tell them they're out past their curfew.
By extension, fans love Guzma even more than Team Skull. He's the overlord of their operation, if you can even call it that, and rightfully sits on the throne as the ruler of the Darling Dorks. He's not only ya boy, he's everyone's boy. They follow his commands to the best of their abilities since he takes every miscreant under his wing. But, at heart, Guzma is just as lost as they are when they come to him. He has no answers other than, "I'll beat down whoever stands in my way!" And when he's thwarted, he loses his mind in a mini fit of rage.
What makes Guzma even more compelling is what happens after the story's over. You learn that he may have a dark past, maybe his dad isn't so good to him after all. You learn that instead of bidding his time for a comeback, he's attempting to repent. And ultimately, you learn that he was just a kid, looking for a path after society rejected him. Number 3!
Pokémon Champion Blue. Remember when you were a kid, blissfully exploring the world of Pokémon on your shiny new Game Boy, and you were just about to reach a new area when your asshole rival is here to ruin your day? In the first generation of Pokémon games, your rival Blue, or as some like to call him Gary, was always one step ahead of you. From the very first time you get a Pokémon, Blue is there egging you on, always trying to get ahead, even going as far as to always pick the starter Pokémon most effective against yours in the original games. His lack of a friendly demeanor and his tagline of "smell you later" made it all the more frustrating when he would challenge you with a fairly substantial team at every turn of your journey, when you were least prepared for it.
Blue is always one step, one gym badge, and even sometimes one party member ahead of you in your journey. This holds true until the very end, when you finally defeat the Elite Four and earn your place as Pokémon Champion, only to find out, once again, you've been beaten to the punch. To become champion, you have to take on the rival who's been plaguing you since the very start, and this match is for keeps. Fighting Blue's fully fleshed out team after a full game of seeing his progress is super cool. And he has perhaps the most balanced team of any major Pokemon battle in Gen 1, with no singular typing focus, and some of the strongest Pokemon of the original 151. The feeling of taking on your asshole rival one last time to prove that you're the definitive Pokemon champion is a satisfaction Pokemon games have rarely attained since then with rival characters.
Number 2.
N. N is an extremely important character for the Pokemon franchise. Almost as if he was a direct response to the claims that Pokemon games were getting too kid-friendly, N brought an unprecedented layer of depth to the series. Pokemon Black and White, you encounter N a few times and learn his philosophies on Pokemon before finding out on an innocuous Ferris wheel ride that he is, in fact, the leader of the game's evil organization, Team Plasma. What made N so compelling were his motives. Even though he was an antagonist, his true goal was to liberate Pokemon from humans, as he himself had been raised in a forest by Pokemon after being orphaned. In reality, N's goals were pure, and he was merely a pawn used by Ghetsis, the game's primary antagonist, as a tool to unite Team Plasma as their king.
N's status as an anti-villain, villain with heroic goals, makes him the most fascinating antagonist in the Pokemon franchise. When you beat the Elite Four and make it to the champion, you find out that the champion has already been defeated by N, who invites you to his castle for a final confrontation. You find that N has successfully befriended one of the 2 mascot legendaries, and after you obtain the other, he challenges you to a battle where you can make it so that both of your lead-off Pokemon are Zekrom and Reshiram. Having a clash of legendaries be at the forefront of this battle against N, who is both a major antagonist and reigning Pokemon champion, creates what is one of the most epic battles in Pokemon history.
Honorable mentions, round 3!
Steven Stone. He's basically just a bad version of Red.
Lance. Fucks women. 3 Dragonites. Number 1!
Pokemon Trainer Red. You can't judge us for this pick. Honestly, who else was it gonna be? Red may not be the hardest or most lore-intensive battle in Pokemon's extended history nowadays, but this battle set the bar for a lot of different reasons. For one, he throws out Pokemon that are the strongest you face in any of the core games. No, Challenge Mode in Black and White 2 do not count. And even then, Pikachu is still the highest level Pokemon you faced in the series. For 2, he embodies something that pretty much every Western fan has heard at least once if they follow Pokemon: to be the very best, like no one ever was. This idea is championed through the mere idea of Red. In fact, he's beyond champion level. It sets a precedent for showdowns that happen after you clear through the Pokemon League.
Not to mention, the idea that this mute opponent is you. After your journeys in Red, Blue, or Yellow, your protagonist went up and waited on the tallest mountain with your strongest Pokemon, and it helps that Red uses a variety of starters to relate at least some of the memories you had using one or a few on your original team.
Back when Pokemon wasn't the titan of a franchise it was today, facing off against Red held a deep meaning. That there could always be someone better, just waiting to show up and take you on. The amount of significance this battle holds for a plethora of reasons leaves it as our number 1 pick. Hey guys, Danny here, and I just want to say thank you for watching Rogers and my top 10 list. This is our first shot at making something like this, but we had a blast coming up with our list, so we plan to make more videos just like it. This is just the beginning of our YouTube journey, so we can only improve from here. If you liked us and want to check out our other stuff and see where we go from here, be sure to like and subscribe. If there's a trainer battle you didn't see featured here that makes your top 10, be sure to comment below. Big shoutouts to all the YouTubers whose footage we used for this video, and Nerdification Media for the graphics. Our goal is to one day have our own footage captured for our videos, but being allowed to use others for our list is a great way to help us get started, so we can't stress enough how thankful we are. Be sure to check out their channels in the doobly-doo below for tons of Pokemon Let's Plays and other gaming videos. That's all for today, guys. Real Talk Bros out.